Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk, back in another video today. Today, we're going to be recapping Day 2 of the 2023 NFL Draft for the Houston Texans, as they made two selections today during the NFL Draft, drafting the Houston. Well, not. I don't think he's from Houston, but played at the U of H, so it's not going anywhere. Staying at Houston. Nathaniel Dell at wide receiver. And then also drafting a center, and he can also play, I think, right guard or right tackle. So he's considered as an O-lineman, but he's going to be playing center for the Houston Texans due to the lack of that position for the Houston Texans, most likely. And most likely it will be the starter for the Texans next year, with not that great of, as he'll have not that much of competition next to him with Scott Quisenberry and the other guy we signed from the Dolphins. So, in that case, that's it for the Texans draft, Day 2 of the guys they selected. Now, they had to trade up for both of these guys today. They selected Scruggs, who they drafted at the offensive lineman and safety at center, Scruggs. They selected him in the second round, and the Texans didn't have a second round pick. Well, they did, but it was traded in that trade up to get Will Anderson in the draft. And the Texans traded up with the Eagles to go from 65 to 62, gave up 188 and 230 to get there. I think, in my opinion, I think they gave up a little too much to move up 3 spots from the third to the second, but maybe the Texans really felt like he was going to be taken. But I feel good about Scruggs, though. I think he's a good center. It's an upgrade from the position, to compared to who was playing at that position last season with Scott Quisenberry, who was just awful, and I hated watching him play center. It was awful last year. But at the same time, I'm not going to hate much on Scott Quisenberry, because I think in the position he was put in last year, he was not going into that season last year, Texans thinking he was going to be a starter. If I'm not mistaken, he never played center in his life. Or not in his life, but not in the NFL. I can't remember what position Scott Quisenberry played, but he never played center in the NFL. And Justin Britt, and people say, oh, he quit on us, but I think something really happened with Justin Britt personally, where after week 1, we never saw him play again. Then Scott Quisenberry had to take over the starting role. So, yes, Scott Quisenberry was horrible, but he was put in a position that he didn't really know was going to happen. I mean, week 1, Justin Britt played. That was our starting center for most of 2021 and first game in 2022. And next thing you know, after week 1, he vanishes and didn't see him again all season. Texans released him early in the offseason. So, to be fair to Scott Quisenberry, the position he was put in, I think he did his job, and he never played that position in the NFL, or I don't know if maybe never in his life. But so give that to him. He had to step up, and he didn't do that great at it, but I mean, he didn't know he was going to have to be in that position. But moving on, so that's a definite upgrade from last season. He's a great blocker. He's strong. He's big too. I really like that upside about him. I think he's a little stronger than Scott Quisenberry. I think, I don't know about the height, but and I could be wrong. I think maybe Juice might be a little bit bigger. I'm talking about weight. And I could be wrong. Height, I think they look pretty similar, but I'm not sure on that either. But I think Juice is a little bit heavier than Scott Quisenberry. Scott Quisenberry kind of seemed a little light, but I think there might be similar on weight, but I'm not too sure. But he looks way stronger than Scott Quisenberry did, and I think he's a way better blocker. I don't think he gets penalized as much as Scott Quisenberry did last season. And, defensive linemen just got right through Scott Quisenberry too last year. It was awful. And I think it's going to be a total upgrade. Now to Nathaniel Dell. Texans were sitting at 73. and decided to trade up from 73 to 69 with the Panthers, and that's what they do. I still don't know what the Texans gave up to get to 69, but they do that, and the Texans end up drafting Nathaniel Dell from Houston at wide receiver. I love Nathaniel Dell. He's a deep threat. I think amazing speed. If he's put in the punt returner position, he's an amazing punt returner with his speed. He got multiple touchdowns, I think, last season with Houston as a punt returner. I think he had like 1,300 receiving yards with Houston last year and 12 touchdowns. Huge year with Houston. I think he's going to be a great player in the NFL. Only question for me is, how much is he going to play in his rookie year due to the wide receivers that are already on the Texans? Robert Woods, Noah Brown, Nico Collins are the projected starters for the Texans at the wide receiver position. Then you got John Mechie sitting at the wide receiver 4. That's where Nathaniel Tank Dell is really considered as the wide receiver 5. So is he going to play as much? And, if someone gets injured, God forbid someone gets injured out of the 4 of those guys, or someone misses one game, just one game. I'm not saying like misses multiple weeks, just missing one game, like a late scratch or something like that. Then Nathaniel Dell would get more playing time. But also, I think he is a guy that C.J. Stroud might like throwing the ball to. C.J. Stroud is a guy who likes throwing the ball deep, and Nathaniel Dell with his speed is a really, really nice guy to target the ball, to throw in the deep ball. I think that even though he's not going to be playing much in his rookie year, I think Nathaniel Dell can be one of the most top targets throwing the ball deep. I think Robert Woods, I think you could throw it, far to him, Noah Brown, he's not a guy, he can, he definitely is a deep threat, but he's a guy who's going to mostly stay in between, 20 to 25 yards. You can definitely go longer than that. I think maybe his longest reception last year was probably 36 yards. I think I saw that. I don't know that for sure, but when I did, when the Texans originally signed Noah Brown in the free agency, I think that is, I was reading off all of his stats. I think his longest was 36, if I am correct. Robert Woods, he's been a guy through his career. He's been a deep threat. Nico Collins has not really been a guy in, so far in his 2 years, has, really go deep. He's been a good red zone guy between 20, 25 yards in the red zone. He's been really good at that. John Mechie, we really don't know. Bryce Young was throwing the ball to him deep in Alabama, but we really haven't seen anything in the NFL. And then, who else am I missing? I talked about Woods, talked about Collins, talked about Mechie, and then who else? I think I talked about everything. Yeah, I talked about everybody. So I think with Woods, definitely a deep threat for the Texans, and Mechie possibly. I think Nathaniel Dell is a guy that C.J. Stroud might, have great chemistry with, and I really like the addition. I think C.J. Stroud, I've talked about it multiple times about how, him in Ohio State, he had a stacked wide receiver core. You need to get a stacked wide receiver core for C.J. Stroud. He needs a stacked wide receiver core, and you add in another guy for C.J. Stroud to throw the ball to. I think there is a chance that, D'Amico and his staff and the offensive coordinator, I can't remember his name. Possibly do end up, giving decent playing time to all 5 of these guys. Stroud likes playing with a lot of wide receivers, so I think, at this point, it's anybody's ball game. And I think it's going to be really interesting. And final, thing doing for the, for these draft guys of the draft, going to be grading them. Nathaniel Tank Dell going with a B+, and Juice Scruggs, I'm going with a B-. Like both picks. We'll see how much they both play in their rookie year. Maybe not as much as they do in their future years with the Texans or in the NFL. They always got to, can think about that possibility of, their future and maybe leaving the Texans. Hope not, but always got to throw the possibility out. But for right now, I'm going B+ and B- for the 2 of these guys. I like the picks. I do think we kind of overtraded for Juice Scruggs. but the Texans felt like this was their guy. But shoot for the stars, Houston. Definitely a decent day for the Texans. I prefer day one. What you think about every Texans fan every Texans fan you meet will prefer day one, and if someone prefers day two, they must be a diehard Cougars fan and don't care at all about the Texans, I guess, because they're excited about Nathaniel Dell because they're like a diehard Cougars fan and like sort of care about the Texans. That's like probably the only way you find a Texans fan that was more excited about day two than day one. But day one was very exciting, and I'm glad that my voice took a little break from day two. I didn't really scream as much as I did last night. I mean, I got excited tonight, but nothing as big as it was last night. So, great day for the Texans, but these picks are nice, adding on from what you did yesterday for sure. Be interesting to see what the Texans do. They started off early. Tomorrow, the Bears take the first pick at 103, being 103, and then the Texans have the first two picks of the fourth round. They have 104, which is a pick that, their pick, and then 105, which is the Cardinals' first pick in the fourth round that they got from the Cardinals, and that Will Anderson trade up that the Cardinals sent with the third overall pick. So the Texans have the first two selections, or the first two. They have two of the first three selections of the fourth round, and I think it's gonna be really interesting to see if the Texans pick both of those or trade down on one. I think there's a chance they pick someone at 104. I'm looking at Clark Phillips, the third, a corner, and then potentially trading down from 105, get some extra draft picks. I think you could see the Texans pick someone at 104 and then possibly trade down from 105. We've seen the Texans do a lot of trading up. I think there's a chance they make the selection at 104 and then trade down at 105, but we shall see. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoy them thoughts. Peace out. Go Texans.